So when we talk about engaging, and I'll talk to some of the things that have really worked in interesting ways. When I did a workshop actually for the larger insurance companies in Waterloo a few months ago, and they had absolutely no social media presence whatsoever. They were afraid to talk to their prospects. They were afraid to talk to their current customers, even their agents, their field people. And so these are the kinds of things that I started just talking about with them is, well, what would be their sense of purpose? Are you trying to promote a product, a service, or even just yourself? If you're job hunting or if you're a consultant and you need to be able to demonstrate that expertise. So starting with a purpose and a goal in mind means that you can kind of backtrack and measure and see how success is unfolding. Talk a little bit about where you can actually look at using some of these tools a little bit more creatively. My first kind of aha light bulb moment using Twitter, for example, was probably about 2 years ago, when it was still a little bit of a kind of a toy. I was doing more personal stuff, maybe a few press releases from my then employer. But it kind of dawned on me when I started realizing that people are starting to engage with me, follow back. I was standing in Times Square, and I was just randomly tweeting, well, do I see this show or that show? So I was trying to get those 50% off tickets. And the one person who responded back to me was actually the vice president from Gartner, who was covering the collaboration space that I was trying to launch. And it's like, well, that's kind of interesting. I didn't realize that he's paying attention to that kind of BS tweet, like, what show should I go see? But it was very interesting because not only did I then follow up and say, well, actually I ended up seeing this, not that. But the next time I saw him at a Gartner conference just a couple months later, we sat and we chatted, and suddenly we realized we had this personal connection about Broadway show tunes, who would have thunk it? And so when we came to coffee break, we could just kind of sit and kind of, not have to worry about him thinking I'm the vendor going to cram my message down his throat, but that says to sit down and talk about something that we have in common. And to this day, we have a wonderful relationship. But it was that one little weird moment out of the bolt, out of the sky on a Sunday afternoon that kind of gave me the missing link to how to start connecting some of these things. And then from there you start trying to push the envelope. Another example, I did a blog post on Government 2.0's content. And I posted the link to this particular session. I did a blog post about a wrap-up of a session I did for Ontario government a couple years ago. About a month later, I get an email from this radio show host in Washington, D.C. Somehow, through the magic of Google and social media, he had actually found this blog post, read the slide deck, say, hey, that was really interesting. Do you want to come on my radio drive home show for U.S. federal government workers? I said, of course. So we did that podcast, and we were able to use that content and use it for promotional purposes. To this day, I really have no idea exactly how he found me, but because I planted that message on a blog, on a slide deck, put the link out there in my LinkedIn status line, put the link out there on Twitter, a couple other people did as well. Somehow it got to him. So it's interesting to be able to explore some of these particular channels when you are trying to promote whether, again, product, service, but sometimes it's not measurable because you have no idea where it actually goes. There's little tricks, trackable URLs give you a lot of really interesting intelligence about who else is pushing your content out there. But sometimes it's just that wonderful, coincidence or serendipity that is going to open doors for you that you never even knew existed. One of the things I find interesting, I do talk a lot to people who think, I really do want to get involved in exploring social media for business or for my professional development, but I don't know where to start. I actually say unleash your evil alter ego for practice. I have a fake name that I use kind of consistently in different places. So if I'm exploring a new platform or channel or community site, I'll use my fake name. Kind of test out, okay, these are the tricks of how to use the tool or the channel. This is kind of the community psychology. These are kind of the rules of etiquette. Figure that out first in your fake name, and then I'll use it professionally so I don't feel like I'm going to embarrass myself. So that's just a trick. If you're curious, you want to start something, but you don't want to embarrass yourself, you're so nervous, you're not confident with your writing skills, get into it under an alias. Unveil yourself later. Okay. When talk about social media, people get so weirded out by the word social. It doesn't mean fun and games. It doesn't mean leisure. I mean, nobody thinks a social worker laughs all day long, do they? Think about that. I mean, if you kind of drill it down to the original root of the word, social means people, society, social structures, social studies. So let's bring that element of social means people in a community environment. It's not fun and games. I find the most effective way of using this for communication is not just to talk like a press release. People get very bored of that. People tend to disengage with that very quickly. I like to explore a little bit of a personality. Plain language, be conversational, sense of humor actually goes a long way. I tend to pick up more Twitter followers with a sense of humor than with, really cutting analysis of the latest development of Java, EE, and ECM. I tend to push lines, a lot of people won't, and do some banter with competitors. But it's a way to cultivate that sense of pushing the envelope. If you're trying to make a difference in a particular area of the technology world, sometimes you do actually have to challenge some of the assumptions or some of the, the sacred cows.
Could you give an example of what you do with competitors? Do you say you suck? What you do with competitors? Do you say you suck?
No, absolutely not. But I typically don't name names, but I will poke holes at business models, for example. And people tend to recognize themselves. You don't need to even put attacking this competitor today.
So you wouldn't converse with a competitor, you would just say?
Oh, I converse with competitors on Twitter all the time. Some are ex-colleagues, some are not, but it's an interesting way of just engaging on a different kind of level, and especially because I work for a company that's very tiny in the scheme of things. We're less than 100 people. We're only 1 year in North America. And my competitors are typically, if not double the size, 100 times the size. So they're going from...
the big guy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the only way to get their attention. If you're not poking the big guy, they will completely ignore you because you're too small to matter. But if you start pushing the envelope a little bit, they will pay attention.
Try to be a little bit funny?
I think so, but not. Okay. So when I take a look at different uses in social media, the way that I'm guiding my team in terms of how to use it, I do like to keep a pretty clear line between, let's say, a branded account, whether again it's Twitter or a LinkedIn group or a Facebook fan page or anything like that, and something, the people who then work for that company. A corporate name, if I have a corporate Twitter account, it should sound like a press release because it is the corporation speaking something somewhat official. I actually feel really weird when I see a corporate account talk like a human being and joke around, and it just seems off. So I do like to kind of keep those tones a little bit separate. And then, the people who work for that organization or participate in that community space or the fan page, yeah, they should actually behave like human beings and talk conversationally, a little bit more lightweight. The way that I like to guide my team in terms of how we do this is, if we're going to do a formal press release, we'll then announce it through the official corporate social networking channels under that official name, and the official link back to the website, the press release, whatever. But then I encourage some, to have a few people do a commentary on it. Well, why is this, what is the coolest feature about this new release? Or why is it important that we're expanding that region? So kind of that highlights, best quotes, why did they like it, that kind of thing. So, for example, when I made the switch, the Nuxio official corporate Twitter account did the official press release, but then I responded later in the day with my own blog post on my own personal, professional blog. It kind of explained, this is my take on it. This is my personal reasons for making the move. So we're contrasting the corporate and then here's more color commentary from the human being behind this news. And I find that tends to work even with things like product announcements, signing up new partners, expansion into new regions, official, and then back it up with here's what's really interesting about it.